origins of EBI really began with combat jiu-jitsu and the idea of combat jiu-jitsu. After failing at trying to get existing grappling promoters to adopt these rules, Victor Davila, who I met while working for the UFC, he's a UFC Spanish commentator, and I worked in production for about 8 years with the UFC. That's where we met. We became really good friends. He ended up joining 10th Planet. I gave him black belt. We've been really, really good. He's one of my best friends. I mean, I love that guy. And he said, hey, I think those rules are awesome. Why don't you let me produce them? Let's go 50-50 on this, and let's put together a show. And I'm like, man, as long as I'm not responsible for anything production-wise, I'm not good at stuff like that. And that's what he does. He's been putting together MMA shows in Mexico for 25 years ago. He was doing it. He was the promoter, he was the DJ, he was the door guy, and he actually fought in the same show. He did everything. So I thought, man, this guy's a hustler. Let's do it. So all of a sudden, I become a promoter, and along with Victor, who was there to make this all a reality. I had to really sit down and figure out every aspect of the format and the rules. I mean, now it's not just me giving an idea to a promoter who's gonna kind of do whatever he wants with that idea, and I gotta think about everything. And EBI was born, so I had to figure out, how am I gonna do this, man? We gotta make sure that it's as exciting as it can be. Decided that, tournaments are the best. 16-man tournaments. I mean, you learn that from UFC too. It was the only UFC ever with 16 competitors. When I decided on how I was gonna do EBI, I figured, since MMA shows can't do 16-man tournaments anymore, they're just too brutal. And to me, tournaments are always the best. A tournament, because you get to see the guys in the finals. It's like you get to see a part of their career that night. You follow these guys in that first round, you're kind of feeling it out. Who's that guy in the second round? Like, oh, dude, that guy's gonna fight that guy. Okay. And then the semifinals, that's huge. The semifinals are huge. It's like, you don't have to know the history of who won the last one or who won the one before. You just show up. There's 16 competitors, and by the finals, you're gonna know those finalists very, very well. So it's like an automatic complete season. Like the first 2 rounds are like the regular season, and then the semifinals are like the playoffs, and then the finals are like the Super Bowl. It's like, boom, all in one. You just take the whole season anywhere. Boom, 16 guys, bam. 16-man tournaments done one at a time. They're magical. I mean, it's why EBI is what EBI is today. It's the 16-man tournaments. If we would have just a card with a bunch of single matches, I don't think EBI would have the same impact. That's why I chose to have 16-man tournaments, is because I just basically just followed the UFC 2 model. And I never forgot the impact that had on me and the world. So obviously, I wasn't gonna have any kind of point system, because in the pursuit of trying to come up with the most entertaining and exciting tournament, 16-man, had to go 16-man, and also had to be submission only, no points. I believe that point tournaments are very important. They make you focus on passing the guard and sweeping. That's a great thing. Not the most entertaining form of grappling tournaments to watch, though, in my opinion. So I thought, okay, so I approached putting together EBI like I would have if I would have got a shot from like a network. And the head of the network, his grandson does jiu-jitsu, and he's doing his grandson a favor. Say, okay, he loves jiu-jitsu. He says you can do a tournament. You got one season, and if the ratings aren't there, I'm gonna have to cut you, but I'm gonna give you a shot. I approached it like that. Like, how would I put together a show if that was the situation? So, gotta have no gi, because the gi is a beautiful sport. Jiu-jitsu with the gi is a beautiful sport, not the most entertaining, not the most fan-friendly. I came up in the gi. I got a black belt in the gi. Keep those tournaments going. I'm just trying to figure out the most entertaining jiu-jitsu format possible. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to take away anybody else. I'm not trying to ban other formats. I'm not going to Congress and trying to ban points tournaments. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to add, a different, a whole different approach. So no gi, of course. No points, of course. No judges, of course. Anything that can contribute to stalling, we just pull that. I got one season. This guy's just going to give me one season. Anything, I'd be laying down at bed, just like at night, just trying to figure out how can I avoid stalling? What can we do? So the overtimes, that's really what separates EBI from most of the other tournaments. Although nowadays there are a lot of tournaments with EBI rules, but the giant ones, that's what separates EBI, are the overtime rounds. Most jiu-jitsu tournaments are decided by their overtime is wrestling based. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we had, in a jiu-jitsu tournament, the overtime's based on submissions? That to me, it just made more sense, and it'd be more exciting, as opposed to watching a takedown shootout, sudden death overtime. Why not have a rear naked choke shootout? Why not? And what's more jiu-jitsu than a rear naked choke? Rear naked choke is the epitome, it's the essence of jiu-jitsu. And arm bars too, arm bar and rear naked choke, right there at the top, both of them, And that's what EBI's OT is all about, is a rear naked choke shootout. I'm gonna create an overtime where the best submission specialist wins. And that's what I did. What happened over time with these overtime rounds is that it made the EBI competitors really have to focus on rear naked chokes and arm bars, offensively and defensively. If you're training for an EBI tournament, you better be working on those EBI OT rounds like every day. And what that ended up doing is creating a bunch of Marcelo Garcias, a bunch of guys that are really good at rear naked chokes. And then you look at the guys in the Danaher team, Gordon Ryan, Gary Tonin, Eddie Cummings, all those guys, even Taza, all those guys have great rear naked choke game. And it's because they were a big part of EBI. Part of the reason they had so much success is because they did practice those EBI OT rounds on the regular, as we did. And all that really is jiu-jitsu. You can call it EBI OT, but it's really just jiu-jitsu OT. It's rear naked chokes and arm bars. You practice them a lot, offensively and defensively. That's about as jiu-jitsu as you can get. When you look at all the best grapplers out today that did EBI, that got their careers launched in EBI, I mean, the list is endless. You go, Gio Martinez, Richie Martinez, Gary Tonin, Eddie Cummings, Gordon Ryan, John Blank, Kyle Chambers, Kyle Bain, Nathan Orchard, Craig Jones, PJ Barge, Grace Gunham. All the EBIs we did, the 18, and the combat jiu-jitsu worlds, which is EBI with strikes. That's all combat jiu-jitsu worlds is. It's 16-man tournaments, same overtime, same everything, except we add strikes. So it's basically the same thing. But when you look at all the competitors that ended up in the finals, in every show, every single show, you see the best guys. In the beginning, the overtime rounds just seem so crazy. And what's gonna happen? People are just gonna stall to get into overtime. Like, your rear naked choke better be really, really good if you're gonna stall to go into overtime. And some people do. Some people, that does happen. You have matches every now and then where one guy dominated in regulation, but in overtime, he lost. That happens. When you look at all the shows, the two guys that ended up in the finals, those were the two best guys that night, for sure. Just look at all the winners. Look at all the guys who hold the belts. It's very hard to game the system and win the belt. You could do it maybe one match, but not all four. EBI 19, let's do it. The welterweights featuring Jay-Z Cavalcante, Nathan Orchard, John Combs, Oliver Taza, Nick Ronan, Hunter Colvin, Alan Sanchez, Vinicius de Jesus, and more. Only on UFC